There's a moment in every believer's life, at least there was in mine, when you realize something you can't unrealize. You can't hold purpose and control at the same time. You can't cling to your plans and still walk in God's. You can't grip your fears and still move in faith. You can't carry old wounds and still step into new seasons. Purpose grows through surrender. Not the kind of surrender that makes you weak, but the kind of surrender that makes you whole. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving God room. Room to heal what you've been carrying. Room to guide what you've been forcing. Room to shape you, what you've been trying to control. And surrender takes courage. It takes humility, the kind that says, God, I don't know everything. It takes compassion, especially towards yourself. It takes forgiveness, especially for the things you wish you'd done differently. It takes integrity, choosing God's way, even when you feel the other way is easier. And it takes faith, the kind that trusts God when you cannot see. So today we're going to talk about the kind of surrender that doesn't shrink you. It strengthens you. The kind of surrender that doesn't take your purpose away and unlocks it. I want to thank you for joining me here on Faith Between the Lines, and I'm Scott. There's a tension every believer feels. We want God's will, but we also want it our way. We want His purpose, but we want to decide the timing. We want His direction, but we want to choose the route. And God, in His patience, lets us try. He lets us plan. He lets us push. He lets us hold on tightly enough to finally realize we're not strong enough to carry everything alone. Control is heavy. Control is exhausting. Control is fear of responsibility as a disguise. Here's the truth. Purpose requires open hands because God can't fill what you refuse to release. Surrender is not losing control. It's admitting you never had it. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. When you release control, you make space for compassion, humility, and forgiveness to grow. You make space for God to do what only God can do. You make space for purpose to breathe. You know, there's so many people that hear the word surrender and they think defeat. But spiritual surrender is different. It's an alignment. It's an agreement. It's saying, God, I want what you want, even if it looks different than what you imagined. Surrender is humility in action. It's the courage to say, I don't know everything and I don't know how to have it. It's compassion towards yourself because you finally stop punishing yourself for not being perfect. It's forgiveness because you stop holding the past against your future. It's integrity because you stop living divided between God's way and your way. Surrender doesn't make you smaller. It makes you clearer. It makes you lighter. It makes you available for God's direction. And when your life is aligned with God's heart, purpose becomes less of a mystery and more of a natural unfolding. You stop striving, you start flowing. You stop forcing, and you start following. When you surrender, God begins to clear the path, not to punish you, but to protect you. Sometimes He removes relationships that were draining you. Sometimes He closes the door that would have distracted you. Sometimes He interrupts plans that would have limited you. Sometimes He exposes habits that were quietly destroying you. This is compassion. This is goodness. This is love. God removes what blocks your purpose so He can reveal what builds it. And yes, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it feels like a loss. Sometimes it feels like things are falling apart. But surrender teaches you something powerful. When God takes something away, He's making room for something better. When He closes a door, He's protecting your future. When He shifts your path, He's aligning your purpose. When He says, not this, He's preparing you for not yet or not here. Purpose grows when you stop fighting what God is trying to free you from. There is a clarity that only comes after surrender. A peace that doesn't make sense. A claim that doesn't match your circumstances. A strength that didn't come from you. When you stop trying to control everything, you finally hear God clearly. You hear His guidance. You feel His nudges. You sense His timing. Surrender sharpens your spiritual vision. It softens your heart. It steadies your emotions. It strengthens your integrity. It deepens your faith. And suddenly the things that used to overwhelm you don't have the same power anymore. Because surrender doesn't change your situation. It changes you. It changes the way you see people. It changes the way that you respond to pressure. It changes the way you handle disappointment. It changes the way you carry yourself. Surrender gives you spiritual clarity, the kind that makes purpose unmistakable. As a reflection of this episode, I wrote a poem for it called When I Let Go. I held my plans with anxious hands, afraid to lose my way. But every time I tightened up, my peace would slip away. I feared that letting go meant loss, a future undefined. But surrender brought a quiet strength that settled in my mind. For when I laid my burdens down and trusted God to lead, I found the hope I longed for in the place of deepest need. Now purpose blooms where fear once lived, and faith begins to grow. My life became much lighter on the day I let it go. I learned through my love of God that there is a freedom on the other side of surrender. There is a freedom that only surrender people know. A freedom from fear. A freedom from pressure. A freedom from pretending. A freedom from carrying what was never yours. When you surrender, you stop striving. You stop forcing. You stop fighting battles God never asked you to fight. And when you begin to walk with compassion, because you're no longer living in survival mode, you begin to live with humility, because you finally trust God's strength more than your own. You begin to forgive, because you're no longer holding on to the past for protection. You begin to walk with integrity, because your heart is no longer divided. You begin to practice self-control, because your spirit is finally at peace. This is the freedom that grows purpose. This is the freedom that makes you whole. This is the freedom that comes from surrender. Purpose doesn't grow in the grip of control. Purpose grows in the release. My closing blessing for this episode today is, may you find the courage to release what you cannot control. May humility steady your steps. May compassion soften your heart. May forgiveness free your spirit. May integrity guide your choices. May self-control protect your peace. And may the God that meets you in surrender fill your life with clarity, strength, and purpose. I want to thank you for joining me here on Faith Between the Lines, and I hope I met you right where you are. You being here in this space matters, where your questions or comments are always welcome and can be left on YouTube or on Buzzsprout. Before I close, I want to take this moment to honor the families and the men and the women of our military. Those who serve, those who have served, and those who stand behind them quiet with strength. Your sacrifice, your courage, and your commitment to this great country do not go unnoticed. May God bless you, protect you, and surround your family with peace and gratitude for all you give. And always remember, you are never walking alone. We'll see you here on the next episode.